It's my distinct pleasure to be introducing our keynote speaker, Biniam Gebre. Biniam is General Deputy Assistant Secretary for the Office of Housing and Federal Housing Administration. Since joining H.U.D, Biniam has been co-leading several major priorities for the department, including efforts to transform how H.U.D delivers rental assistance, efforts to modernize and preserve FHA's 80-year history of providing affordable housing, and as the number 2 official within housing, Gebre is also responsible for the day-to-day management of the Office of Housing and Federal Housing Administration. So in every large organization, right, you have the principal boss, and they're all out dealing with the ministerial aspects of a particular department, and then you have that person that's really running the day-to-day activities. Prior to joining H.U.D, Biniam was a principal at McKinsey Company, where he led many engagements on housing, finance, risk management, leadership development, and organizational effectiveness. He co-founded the McKinsey Center for Government, McKinsey's global hub for research, collaboration, and innovation in government performance. He was also the founding leader of the development agencies and international aid practice before that, the founding leader of the real estate finance practice. Biniam received a BA from Williams College in chemistry and an MBA in finance and economics from Northwestern University. So he's not a stranger to our area here. These are familiar grounds for him. And when he's not busy working, he's trying to do continuous improvement on his kid's treehouse, something that I did for about 10 years with my kids. We talked a little bit about that. So it's really my pleasure to introduce him. I told him he had the dubious distinction, and now that our friend Maurice Jones, our former Deputy Secretary, has moved on, of being our Capital Region hook within H.U.D. So please join me in welcoming Biniam.
Thank you, Jamie, for that wonderful introduction, and for being such a great host. I think the difference between my past job and this job is that, you know, if I go to some random city, I'm not completely on my own running into walls and going in the opposite direction in traffic. I have great folks like Jamie who are great hosts. I also want to thank Mayor McCarthy and the city of Schenectady for hosting us. It's a lovely city endowed with what is arguably one of my favorite words, Schenectady. It just sort of gallops out of your mouth with joy, you know? It's Schenectady. I just love it. Anyways, I'm very excited to be here with you all. Many years ago, when I was making my slow escape from poverty, I landed about 20 miles from here over at the Albany airport. I'd flown nearly 3,000 miles from the other side of the country for a weekend visit to Williams College. It was my first time on a plane since I was a young child escaping wars in Africa. The place I'd come from all those years ago, a place an hour east of Los Angeles, was made mostly of concrete and hard brown earth, drowning in smog. And if you've been to the Inland Empire in Southern California, you probably know what I'm talking about. So when I arrived in Albany, and was let out of the airport, I was very pleased to be greeted with pleasant blue skies and clean air. It was wonderful. That day, the sun shined bright, and a few joyful clouds filled the sky as we made our way from Albany over the great Hudson River through the historic city of Troy, onto the winding roads and rolling hills, until we arrived in what I learned that they called the Purple Valley, just over the mountain. I will never forget that one hour drive. It is one of the reasons why I decided to go to Williams. You know, as a faithful student of the great American story, I was simply captivated by the landscape, the traces of the industrialization age, the isolated homes surrounded by thick foliage, and the old church buildings that have been around for so many decades. And as I stared out into the hills, I could imagine ghosts of Melville and Thoreau making their way through the valley. Now I stand here with you all in this historic theater, and in this historic city, home to Union College, where the great William Seward, one of my heroes, got a lot of his inspiration. It's just wonderful to be here. And it's great to see you all coming together to invest in this region. And I admire your efforts to both preserve its history and to move its economy forward. I don't think it's an accident that more than a century later, this region is once again at the forefront of technological progress. While this region gave us GE and life to Edison's crazy ideas more than a century ago, it's now giving us life to nanotechnology, which is arguably some of the most exciting technological advancements in our age. Of course, it's not just about history or technology. It's also about building sustainable cities, communities, and homes in the capital region. And towards this end, we at HUD have a number of initiatives that are aimed at supporting your efforts. But instead of going through the long list of important work that we're doing, if you visit our website, you'll see the many drop-down menus with the many things that we're doing. I thought I'd focus my time with you all here on two broad and important topics that are a passion for me personally as well. One is fair housing, and the other is access to affordable housing. So first is the question of fair housing. So while my colleague Sarah Pratt has already addressed this subject earlier today, I just can't pass up the opportunity to say something about it, because it's such an important topic, especially here in Schenectady, which was once a bustling route for the Underground Railroad. So while as a society we have made tremendous progress over the many decades that have passed, housing discrimination is still a very real issue, and it's a very real issue in too many places. Now, it's obviously foolish to think that we can eliminate discrimination. I can tell you firsthand, I experience it regularly. But we must remain committed to addressing it with the persistence and determination that it requires when people are treated unfairly. I feel it's a moral obligation for us to do so. Now, everyone at HUD is committed to doing our part by improving how we respond to reports of discrimination and giving communities the tools to prevent it. This includes the affirmatively furthering fair housing role, which we believe will bring HUD's approach into the 21st century. As Sarah explained this morning, this is a rule that's still in the works, and we'll update you soon on it. But in addition to that, there are other critical work that we're doing around this topic. Towards this goal, we are intent on ensuring that everyone has the freedom to live where they choose. Towards this goal, we are investing more and more in our Section 202 and 811 programs, as an example. By targeting appropriate community-based services and supports, we are enabling very low-income elderly and disabled individuals to thrive within the communities rather than live apart from it. And we are able to incentivize state and local housing and health agencies to work together and plan for more effective delivery of Housing Plus services for this group in more integrated settings. Moreover, the 202-811 programs are being used in innovative ways to help states comply with Olmstead requirements to move individuals who are in institutional settings or at risk of being so. Towards this end, in 2014, we plan to award an additional $120 million in 811 PRA funds through a combined FY13-14 notice of funding availability. So with the upcoming AFFH rule and all these other efforts that I've described and more, we will continue to make progress on this important question of fair housing. So that's sort of the one broad topic that we really focused on, is fair housing. The second broad category of priorities, which I'll spend a bit more time on, is the issue of access to affordable housing. An affordable home is the foundation for a strong and growing middle class in this country. Yet as a nation, we struggle to create a sufficient amount and variety of affordable housing. The 2011 American Home Housing Survey shows the number of households facing worst-case housing needs grew to 8.5 million families. That's a staggering 43% increase from 2007. This struggle mirrors the growing income gap we see in many communities. Despite our growing economic recovery, there are still many obstacles blocking upward mobility. It is a very real issue. And so, alongside efforts to increase the minimum wage and improve access to affordable health care, the President's Opportunity Agenda also includes access to decent, affordable housing for everyone. The secretary likes to say when a family chooses a place to live, they're choosing more than just a home. They're choosing a school for their kids, safe streets, access to jobs and transportation, and all the services that a neighborhood provides. They are choosing the opportunities that a community offers. And now, more than ever, we need to make sure that this kind of opportunity is more widely available. Towards this end, there are several initiatives worth noting here today that I'm personally working on as well. First, there's the question of very near to my heart, which is preserving the role of FHA and strengthening its programs. And there's very clear bipartisan support in Congress as the debate on housing finance reform is happening. It's across-the-board support for maintaining FHA's historic role in the economy. This year, FHA is celebrating its 80th anniversary. Over those 80 years, our agency has supported more than 40 million families in this country. FHA was as critical to the economy during the Great Depression as it was during this past Great Recession, each time doing its part. Its dual mission of providing affordable access to home ownership and its counter-cyclical role to act as a backstop in times of economic stress has been critical to the economy. And FHA's presence in the capital region is a testament to this, to the important role FHA plays in local economies across the country. From the Albany Medical Center, which I didn't actually know we insured the loan for the Albany Medical Center, and I just recently signed another X million dollars going to that center, which is great. To the Southgate Apartments, and of course the more than 30,000 families in the capital region that own a home thanks to the FHA program. All of this is why we have put so much energy into preserving and strengthening FHA. This includes numerous initiatives that have allowed us to improve the health of the Mutual Mortgage Insurance Fund, what I like to call our rainy day fund. It is also why we have invested so much in the FHA Transformation Initiative that has allowed us to upgrade our technology and improve our business processes. We will continue these efforts to preserve and strengthen FHA's role to more effectively serve communities such as those in the capital region. So that's the first thing, or on the broad topic of access to affordable housing, it's strengthening and preserving FHA's role. The second thing I'd like to focus on is the growing problem with access to credit. There was a recent report from the Urban Institute that suggests that up to 1.2 million potential home buyers were unable to access credit in 2013. In that same report, they highlight that there are nearly 13 million Americans with impaired credit that will struggle to get financing, even though FHA policy allows giving these people a chance if they qualify. What we typically hear from critics is that we shouldn't be making loans to these people anyway. Their mortgages are going to go bust. They have a high probability of default, as the smart economists like to say. And you know what? It is true. They do have high probability of default. Our statistics show that 1 in 10 of these borrowers will default on their loan. But just because that one borrower out of the 10 defaults, why should we shut out the other 9 families? It's just not fair. It's absolutely not fair to shackle them to past mistakes if they qualify and can fulfill their obligations. Take me, for example. When I was attending Williams, all those years ago, I took custody of my younger brother, who was 10 years old at the time. He came to live with me. I took him hoping to provide him better opportunities and a better life than the one I had growing up. As you might suspect, I was a bit of a fool. It was very difficult financially. And while I worked multiple jobs and had scholarships, I relied mostly on debt to take care of our daily needs. Whether it was buying food or needing gas money, that's what I did. This was partly because I didn't know what I was doing, and partly because I just didn't have any other options. As you can imagine, poor management of our finances destroyed my credit history. By the time I got a job in the Twin Cities and after graduating and tried to find a home for myself, my brother, and my mother, I had a credit score of 590. 590, that was my credit score. Lucky for me, it was during the mortgage go-go years, and I was able to get a mortgage and buy a decent home in a safe and wonderful community where my 12-year-old brother was able to thrive. Guess what? if I haven't missed a single payment on that mortgage since I got it 11 years ago. But if that version of me tried to get a mortgage today, I'd get the door slammed in my face. I would have been viewed as that 1 in 10 borrowers whose mortgage is going to go bust, who has no business getting a mortgage. I would have been labeled subprime and shut out of the market. Now, some may exclaim, tough luck, or that I'm a special case. But I'm not a special case. There are 8 others out of that 10 who will fulfill their obligations if given the chance. Just because they struggled in the past doesn't mean that they're going to screw up going forward. And you know what? There is a better way than just tough luck. So from FHA's perspective, we can't control the rest of the market, but we can do better at FHA. And from our perspective, that better way has 2 parts. First, we want to help provide borrowers with financial education to increase their creditworthiness and resilience. Second, we want to help lenders get comfortable making loans to these borrowers when it comes to FHA loans. So let's focus first on the borrowers. Extensive research shows that borrowers who go through housing counseling are much less likely to default on their mortgages, make better homeownership decisions, and other broader financial decisions. We want to take advantage of this and invest in bringing more housing counseling to FHA borrowers. We will do this in 2 ways under a broad initiative that we are calling Homeowners Armed with Knowledge, or HOC. The first initiative, called HOC for new home buyers, will provide premium incentives to first-time home buyers who commit to housing counseling. The second initiative, called HOC, Modification Success Program, will incorporate housing counseling into the loan modification process. In addition to these 2 initiatives, the President is requesting $60 million for housing counseling in his 2015 budget. That's a 33% increase above the 2014 levels, because we really believe that providing financial education to borrowers would help them be better borrowers. So that's one side of the coin, helping potential homeowners become more informed decision makers. The other side of the coin is the lenders. Our goal is to create a quality assurance approach that more clearly communicates our underwriting and quality expectations. This includes making enforcement policy and process changes, improving our compare ratio and providing more timely feedback to lenders on compliance, reviewing a larger variety of loans and no longer primarily focusing on only those loans identified as at risk, refining our certifications to ensure that they are tied to current standards, rewriting our single-family handbook and consolidating our lender guidance, creating one authoritative document on how to do business with FHA. We believe that improving our quality assurance practices, which means providing more timely feedback and greater clarity to lenders, should result in less credit overlays. So should make lenders more confident in making an FHA loan, that we're not going to come at them with some issues in the future. So this, combined with our HOC initiative, will be at the center of our efforts to address access to credit. Now, I want to make a distinction here between access to credit and affordability in home ownership. So there is a real issue with affordability that has both to do with rising interest rates, our premium structure, et cetera. And we are very much looking at that issue. There's a separate issue here that has, separate from affordability, which is just access to credit. Like, people can afford to get the mortgage, but they're not given the opportunity because of the issues I've described. So that's the second sort of big thing, is access to credit. The third thing I'd like to focus on is access to affordable rental housing. In particular, the challenge we face with public housing. In the last 15 years, our country has lost at least 170,000 affordable homes to sale or demolition. The loss of units has only accelerated over the past many years, driven by the backlog of over $25 billion in capital needs for the nation's stock of approximately 1.2 million public housing units. An average of 24,000 in needed improvements per unit must be made across the inventory to mitigate the permanent loss of at least 10 to 15,000 units per year. That's 10 to 15,000 units per year that we're losing because of this backlog issue. This is a very serious problem, exacerbated by the growing demand for permanent affordable units across the country. It's not like our population in this country is declining. So I'll tell you another personal story to bring this a bit to life, because it's a very serious issue. For reasons I won't bore you with, when I was 10 years old, my mom, brother, and I found ourselves in Redlands, California, an hour east of LA, without a home. We first lived with our cousins. This is a family of 12, housed in a 5-bedroom unit at one of the local housing projects. I can assure you they were not pleased to add another 3 to that lot. We stayed with my cousins until a local church allowed us to live in the back room of a small house that was adjacent to the main building. They used that house as an office, but they had a little room in the back for my brother, my mother, my brother, and I. We lived there for a few months until we were allowed to move into a donated apartment for a few more months on the other side of town. And mind you, during this time, I'm switching schools. So after about a year of wandering the city, we were finally taken off the waiting list and given our own unit at the local housing projects, which is run by the San Bernardino Housing Authority. Now, to be clear, this new home wasn't heaven on earth. I mean, I hated having to hang my clothes on so we didn't have the dryer, washer dryer, so we don't have the washer, which was in the kitchen, and the dryer was our clothesline outside, which is, given I come from, Eritrea as a refugee from wars, and this is still good, but I'd go to school with I don't know if you've ever used clotheslines and you dry your clothes in the little line that shows in the middle of your shirt. Going to school with that line in the middle of my shirt until I figured out that actually you don't have to hang it that way. You can hang them by the bottom edges. It was embarrassing, to say the least. But I'm not complaining. It was a nice home that, for the first time in my life, provided a real source of stability. So when I think about the thousands of units that are being lost due to disrepair, I think about that. I think about my family from that time. I think about that 10-year-old boy who was being shuttled around from different parts of the city, school to school. I think about all those families struggling to find a stable home so that their kids could have the opportunity to grow, develop, and succeed in life. This challenge is one that the Secretary has taken on with fervent passion, and I love him for it. Specifically, out of his brainchild, we've created this program called the Rental Assistance Demonstration, also known as RAD. I know of 2 things in the world that are absolutely perfect. 2 things. One is the paperclip. Second is Legos. There's just no way to improve those 2 things. Paperclips are just perfect tool. And Legos, I mean, how much better can you make a Lego? Well, the RAD program is not as perfect as a paperclip or Legos, but in my humble opinion, it comes close to addressing this issue of the $25 billion backlog. Now, I know there's a lot of concerns, a lot of criticism about it, but it is RAD is a comprehensive and innovative strategy that offers a long-term solution to preserving and enhancing this country's affordable housing stock. You see, over the past 30 years, rental property owners have used HUD project-based Section 8 rental assistance contracts to leverage billions in public and private investment in order to make property improvements, while safeguarding the long-term affordability of rental properties. RAD opens this door to public housing authorities and private owners of certain legacy HUD properties in ways that past efforts have not. The program gives them access to proven financial tools such as debt and equity financing to be able to be applied to at-risk public and assisted housing. And these aren't just words. While we still have a lot of work to do, we are making real progress with RAD. The 180,000 units of applications we've already received to date means that over $6 billion in physical improvements can be made.
Okay, so for those of you that want to ask and take the opportunity to ask Biniam some questions, he's got a breakout session immediately following lunch back in the GE Black Box Theater. When we moved the keynote here over to here, we didn't account for some of the microphone challenges. So I'm going to do some administrative remarks in a second here, but Biniam, thank you so much for joining us. Okay, so for those of you that are joining us for lunch,